Welcome, and thank you for coming to Investing in a Neighborhood and Transforming Our City, the second in our monthly community forum series hosted by the Mayoral Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Development. I want to thank the library for hosting us. Callahan Hall is a beautiful space, and I'm grateful for all of their help. Joining me as Deputy Mayor for this evening is Katherine Weber, our Lending Services Librarian, who will say a few words.
Thank you for the introduction. Welcome everyone to Callahan Hall at the Lewiston Public Library. It's such a pleasure to be here hosting you all tonight. So thank you so much for coming. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. If you need to use the restrooms, they are outside the double doors to the left. In case of an emergency, the closest exit is also out the double doors, but down the big staircase and out the front doors. And finally, we thank you for your patience in advance with our sound system. It is quite new. We're still learning a little bit of the nuances of it. So thank you so much in advance, and enjoy the forum.
I also wanted to thank our panelists this evening, Chris Kilmurry from Lewiston Housing, Katherine Elliott from Avesta, and Misty Parker from the City of Lewiston. And I'm excited about my co-chair for this committee, Mark Lee from Harriman Associates, who will be moderating. We are here tonight in downtown Lewiston, which is truly the heart of our city. Downtown is the core of our civic and cultural life. I've had discussions with many of you about the importance of our downtown, both in terms of the role it plays in our local economy and the nostalgia it evokes for many Lewiston people. Some of you reminisce about Saturdays when you'd come down to Lisbon Street with your family to shop at local businesses' sidewalk sales, catch up with friends, get a haircut, and get some lunch. A version of that Lewiston is possible once again. A diverse, beautiful, lively downtown where we embrace new people, new businesses, and new ideas is even more possible because of the economic spark that Lewiston's Choice Neighborhood Initiative. Lewiston is the smallest city ever to receive the Choice Implementation Grant, which focuses in and around our Tree Streets neighborhood. This grant is not only transformative for a city of our size, it also positions Lewiston to become a national model for significant positive economic change in smaller cities across the United States. Choice's $30 million federal funding investment will ultimately result in $60 to $100 million total in public and private investment in Lewiston over the next 5 years. Clearly, this is a game changer for the Tree Street neighborhood, for Lewiston's downtown, and for our entire city. Choice is charting our city's trajectory by strengthening a historically vibrant downtown neighborhood through strategic investment in our city's housing, people, and places. Choice is our chance to honor our past and build our future. Choice is key to the economic growth and success of our city. I am grateful to the Choice Initiative's implementation partners for their dedication to Lewiston. I'm looking forward to this evening's conversation, being a part of this exciting work, and talking with you all about how we can work together to move Lewiston forward in new and innovative ways, thanks to the opportunities Lewiston's Choice Neighborhood Initiative provides. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mark Lee.
Thank you very, very much, Mayor Shalene, and excited that you're all here to join us tonight. This is, we've got a panel of really the experts on this aspect. The reason that we're talking about this as part of an economic development series is really highlights the importance of housing, and in particular, Choice is more than just a housing initiative, and we're going to hear a lot more about that tonight. As part of this, we also want to invite communication with all of you, and so at a point in the presentation a little bit after, we've got some handout cards, and the mayor will assist us with handing those out to you folks. And so if you've got questions that you want to ask, the method is we're going to ask that you write them down, we'll collect them, and bring them forward. We're going to begin with a presentation by the panelists and really helping us to understand what this entire program is all about. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Misty Parker. Misty, if you just want to maybe introduce yourself, your role at Lewiston, and your role in Choice, and then we'll get an introduction of the rest of the panelists, and then we'll go into the presentation itself. So, Misty?
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us tonight to talk about this exciting project. My name is Misty Parker. I'm the Assistant Director of Economic and Community Development with the City of Lewiston. I've been part of the Choice Neighborhood work since about 2018 when we received our planning grant that really started thinking and planning for what we could do to transform the Tree Street neighborhood. Katherine?
My name is Katherine Elliott. I am the Senior Development Officer at Avesta Housing. And my role on this, Avesta's role, is Development Consultant to Lewiston Housing Authority on the 3 phases of housing development that will take place over the coming years, partially funded by the Choice Funds.
My name is Chris Kilmurry. I'm the Executive Director of Lewiston Housing. I've been with Lewiston Housing since 2019. I sort of picked up and jumped in about that time after Misty did such great work with the city of getting the implementation grant, and we worked towards getting the actual full grant in place. And our role will be owner and operator of the properties after they are completed.
Great. Thank you very, very much. And so I believe we've got a series of slides, and Misty, you're going to start us off in an overview of what this is, and then we're getting into some level of detail. So.
Okay. So for those of you that may not be aware of this Choice Neighborhood Initiative, but have heard probably over the last few years, choice, 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 what is this really all about? It is a program from the Department of Housing and Urban Development that's really focused on distressed housing in distressed neighborhoods. And HUD, who they normally just do housing, recognized that as they made investments in this distressed housing, that it really wasn't changing the distressed neighborhood around them. And it really wasn't lifting up the people who were living there. And so they identified this program and the need to do things differently. And so the program takes more of a holistic approach to planning for redevelopment in these neighborhoods. So the program starts with a planning grant and to develop a transformation plan for this neighborhood. Our planning process started around 2018. We engaged over 400 residents in the downtown over a year and a half to come up with a transformation plan. Because while under the program we would be replacing distressed public housing, we recognized that for Lewiston, this is an opportunity to do something different and larger, and we wanted to make sure that the residents in the entire neighborhood were part of that process in helping us envision what could be possible. We started with listening and doing mapping workshops. We did a lot of pop-ups and created opportunities for people to come out and provide their input. We also did things like a data analysis to really understand the existing conditions in the neighborhood now, because part of this work is also tracking how the neighborhood is changing with each investment. What is the impact? If we invest here, are we seeing other investment around us? If we're doing something positive here, are we seeing other positive things happen around us? Is our investment really making the difference that we want to see? So from that, we also did a market analysis. We recognized that, while we want to dream big and do everything that we want to do, it needs to be grounded in what the market can actually support. We know that we have a depressed housing market in that neighborhood that has not seen significant investment in decades. And so we want to be very strategic in how we invest in that neighborhood so that we can be a catalyst for other investment and create those conditions that are going to support others to lead the way in that work. After that, we came up with our plan and all of these great recommendations from all that data, and we brought it back to the community, and we ground truthed it to make sure that that was what we had heard, that's what people wanted. We explained why we approach things certain ways so that as a community, we were building the same goals and strategies together throughout the entire process. In 2019, we completed the plan and council adopted it. So as I mentioned, the program really is about that holistic approach. So another thing that Lewiston did differently was most choice neighborhoods are in much larger cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and one of the reasons this program was so attractive is because those neighborhoods had seen positive economic growth around their choice neighborhoods. So we knew what the potential was, but it was still just a very small area of these very large cities. So in Lewiston, when you look at our choice neighborhood, it covers a greater area. So we recognize that if we're just focused in the most distressed area and start incrementally, we can have a significantly higher ripple effect and see it more drastically than you can in those larger cities. And so that really influenced a lot of what we were doing. And we also recognize that it's not just about housing. We have to invest in the infrastructure around that. We have to be making improvements in our public spaces. So you'll start to see over the next year more improvements happening around Kennedy Park, new public art sculptures that will be installed. Our artists are actually finishing those up this summer with installation happening this fall. We had this past winter a successful launch of the sledding hill. So it's all these activities that create a positive place that people want to live and be around. And when you have those places, that's when you start to see more interest and more investment. So incrementally, that's the direction that we're headed. So the development strategy that we came up with through the planning process really focused on what we've been doing right as a city. We've had huge success in the Mill District with revitalizing that area. The Riverfront Island Master Plan, which started in 2012 and had great public participation. We saw a lot of results from that and economic activity. Same thing with Lisbon Street. 2 decades ago, we did not have the number of businesses that we do on Lisbon Street right now, the commerce, the activity that you see. And so we've been very successful in revitalizing certain areas. But for whatever reason, we did not get from Lisbon Street 2 blocks up onto the tree streets. It just stopped, and we don't really know why. So we looked at a development strategy. If we are going to invest significantly in replacing distressed housing, how do we do it in a way that is going to help bring that energy up into the neighborhood? So we're looking at Pine Street as a really important corridor in the neighborhood and looking at the possibility of developing across from Kennedy Park there to be that bridge, and that being our first development site that can help bring that energy. And Katherine will talk a little bit more about that later. Also, second site will be further up in the neighborhood, really continuing that growth. But from those that were just on the walking tour, it's only about a block between those 2 sites. And you're already starting to see new investment that's happening around it. And we're also starting to see new businesses that are coming in with a child care facility that's going to be across from our second housing site on the corner of Bartlett and Pine Street. So from there, we have a third site that will be located on the other side of the neighborhood on Ash Street, which will kind of round out that block, but again, putting it on an important connector street in the neighborhood so that visually people see the change that's happening. And our goal is as we invest and start to change there, we want to reduce the risk for others to make that investment, to make sure that the property values are increasing. As part of our neighborhood plan, we'll also be investing in new businesses. We'll be investing in expansion of childcare, because childcare is so important to us right now. So Promise Early Education will be one of our partners that is focused on expanding at 1 College Street, which is under construction right now. Part of that, we're creating new job opportunities. And so that is something that we are excited about, making sure residents are connected to those opportunities. And through each investment that we're making, we're seeing projections of new jobs created and commitment from our partners to help connect people in the neighborhood to those job opportunities and train them. So that sort of gives you the summary of just what is choice and what is it that we want to do. One of the factors that has really led us to this has been that this is a neighborhood that once was vibrant and has all the capabilities of being vibrant here again in the city. And so our work is really targeted to be fast, quick, and impactful. And then to just step away and let others come in and invest and create more exciting opportunities so that people will again see that vitality that we once had here.
So as Misty mentioned, this is a much more holistic approach to how we're sort of handling this process. And with that, one of the facets of this was really adding in a huge people component to this. So right now, we currently have a staff of 5 that were funded through the Choice program who are working with all of our Choice residents to gather information, learn about them, get to know what their needs and wants and desires are, to help them be successful to whatever it is they want to do. Because as Misty alluded to, it's really about the people when you come right down to it. We could build all the housing we want to, but it's the people that live in that house that are going to have the profound impacts upon the neighborhood. So to date, there were 92 original target households that we were working on. 84 of those households remain. Some people moved on. It's been a couple years since we got going and originally denoted who those households were. So it's actually pretty successful to still have that many in place that we're working with on a regular basis. Those households represent 142 total people, 58 of which are children, and 38 of those are under the age of 18. We've completed all but a handful of assessments with those residents as we continue to want to learn and know more about them. And we're using that data to help get their information and get them referred over to our Choice partners, who are B Street Health. So if there's anything medically related that they need to work on, they can go there. Promise Early Education, as we talked about earlier, who are in charge of youth enrichment and structured childcare. Tree Street Youth and the Root Cellar, who are focused on youth enrichment for our older children. And also Strengthen LA, who are doing job training and providing job opportunities. We're also actively working on getting any of our residents who are working, who want to work, signed up for FSS, which is not a Choice program, but we've layered it into Choice because it's an incredibly powerful program for people who are already in the workforce, who are looking to get ahead, or have not yet joined the workforce. What this program allows people to do is, in any HUD program, you typically pay 30% of your adjusted gross income of your rent to the landlord. And when you're in the FSS program, as your income goes up, your rent goes up correspondingly. With FSS, what your landlord does at that point, as your rent goes up, that same amount of money will be put into an escrow account for those residents. So if your income continues to go up, your escrow amount will continue to go up. After 5 years, which is typically around the graduation time for anybody in the program, as long as they graduate successfully, those residents are given that escrow account. And we've had people in the not too distant past graduate with $15,000 to $20,000, which is a transformational amount of money for families that they could use for a down payment on a home, purchasing a new car, paying off student loan debt, or any other type of investment they feel will be appropriate for their family. There are really no restrictions on what they can do with that money, which is also incredibly important and empowering for people. And then in addition to that, we're also heavily focused on food security, which is another thing that's not really part of Choice typically. But through the pandemic, we realized that food insecurity was an incredible problem. And it's not that it wasn't there beforehand, it just became so obvious throughout the pandemic. So we brought together multiple different grants, and we actually, throughout the pandemic, delivered more than 22,000 meals to our residents, and we realized how impactful that was to them. And we didn't want to just stop when the pandemic supposedly, stopped. Half of us are wearing masks, so pick and choose whether we're actually done with it or not, but in any event, we wanted to make sure that we continued to have a focus on that. So as part of this, we included in our Choice grant a food stability coordinator. And they're going to work with many of our other partner organizations, the St. Mary's Food Bank, the Green Ladle, and any other social service agency to identify and make sure that any food security needs are met. Because a family that's hungry is not a family that's set up to succeed. So all the other programs are moot if people can't focus on what's most important. And then, interestingly, you know, the work that we're doing as part of Choice is not really that different than what Lewiston Housing has been doing long before I got here and since I showed up in 2019. What a data point that we found that we thought was really sort of, I don't know, powerful was that, you know, we have to provide HUD to tell them where our average income is. And when we got our total number, we were quite surprised. We're like, that number is much higher than we see across the country on a regular basis. But then when we split out the LHA properties, the owned LHA properties that we manage, and the properties that we're going to be buying, there was a stark difference between the incomes of the two different groups, where the people that lived in the LHA properties had incomes that were, on average, 269% higher than those at Maple Knoll and 130 Oxford Street, which tells you, even without the emphasis and the extra staff related to the Choice investment that we get now, where I have 5 people actively working with 84 households, what was once 92, now 84 households. That light touch of giving people encouragement, a safe place to live, a well-maintained and managed house where if something comes up, someone will come in and take care of it, really has that big of an impact. So you can only sort of, you know, exponentially look at what those outcomes can be as we continue to work towards implementing all the facets of our Choice program for all these different residents, and we move them into the new target housing that we're going to be building, as Misty mentioned, at the 3 target sites downtown. So that's what we're doing for the people side in a nutshell.
All right, let's talk about homes. I'm going to move because I have some images and I don't want to be looking behind me. So, as Misty said, this is the target area that in red, that's the neighborhood that is the focus of the Choice work. And the 3 locations of the new housing that we're building are centralized right here. So we've got the first site right across from Kennedy Park. We've got the second site, like Misty said, just a block further into the neighborhood. And then the third is just yet a block away. So we're talking about a lot of investment in a very small area, which is why this work can be so transformational. So I'm going to go through each of those 3 sites, kind of what they'll look like. I'm sure you're going to have questions, but I want to keep it brief so we can get to those questions later on. I don't know what I just did. Sorry, everyone. All right, perfect. All right, so Wedgewood is site 2, so that's the second site that we showed up there. This is chronologically going to be the first one that we are building. So we already have a contractor on board for this, and we are working with our architect through the design process, and we're hoping to be breaking ground on some of the environmental scope yet this fall, with the full construction to begin in the first quarter or early second quarter next year. So the site is made up of the 13 vacant parcels that you can see here, as well as the Wedgewood building up here. This building isn't there anymore. That Wedgewood, Dr. Milton Wedgewood House, will be rehabilitated according to the National Park Service standards. So we'll be bringing it back, bringing back the trim, bringing back the siding, bringing back all of those historic pieces. And then in addition to that, we'll be building 7 new buildings, which you can see a little bit. This rendering is a little older, but you can see the Wedgewood house here on the corner, and then what that new investment will look like down both sides of, in this case, that's Pierce Street. Here's looking up Bartlett Street, so building on the corner, and then new buildings all up that street. This is the blocky site plan of what we are hoping to accomplish here. So you can see the different building sizes. So those smaller buildings, the ones that are beige and brown, those are 8 and 9 unit buildings. One of the things that came out during the transformation plan work was that there was a strong desire for smaller buildings that meet the needs of families. So what we are trying to do here is achieve that lower density, smaller building feel so that they match what's in the neighborhood and are meeting that need. And then the 2 buildings, D and G, those would be 4-story buildings that have elevators, which will help meet some of the accessibility needs in the neighborhood and provide some balance, anchoring those corners, focusing on the role that Pine Street has as that main corridor through town, and bringing in some of the architectural details that are consistent with the neighborhood. Just a couple of elevations to give a sense of what those are going to look like. So these are the new buildings there. And then the corner buildings are a little bulkier, which is intentional, I promise, but with this detail, the turret on the corners, which the intention of that is to evoke the architecture of the neighborhood so that there's that fit and so that it makes sense. This second site, Site 1, is DeWitt, which is named in honor of the DeWitt Hotel that used to be on that location. So these are, it's actually 3 parcels, the old bank building, this vacant parcel in the middle where there's parking right now, and then 60 Pine. So it's those 3 parcels right across from Kennedy Park that would be developed with 71 units. And that would have a combination of 1 and 2 bedroom units. And then the exciting thing about this site is that we would be building ground floor commercial space. So this would accomplish both that economic investment need and also address some of the other needs that came up in the transformation plan. The space that we're designing in the building that'll be on this end will be designed for the community food center, which will address food needs in the neighborhood. So affordable, healthy foods that are accessible to people who are walking, or biking, living in the neighborhood. So the top image, you can see that that's the existing condition, and then down below, this is an older rendering, so this is not exactly what it's going to look like. Let me say that again, this is not what it's going to look like. But just gives a sense of what that bulk will feel like. So a 4-story building here on the corner, closer to City Hall, and then up the street, it would be a 3-story building. So we're following the grade, we're bringing that density into the neighborhood, bringing some safety and sense of security to the park by increasing the density there, with the goal of really transforming this block so that it feels intentional and it feels like there's people there. And then the third site is this portion here of land that's owned by Lewiston Housing Authority. So it's Blake Street Towers here that's in the back. And on the front portion of that site, we'd be building 40 units. So that would be in 2 buildings. You can see here, there is a little bit of a divide there. Ash Street obviously has a grade as well, so we're trying to manage that and not overpower anything that's already there on that street. And really activating what is an underutilized area right now and bringing that activity, that sense of security, making it, again, that activated walkway for pedestrians along the streetway. And so across those 3 sites, you've heard reference to the 92 units, the existing housing. So we'll be building a total of 185 new homes. And that number comes out of those 92 homes that we're replacing, as well as 93 new new units, and those will address a range of incomes from workforce housing and market rate housing. The intention there is that we're addressing the wide span of economic need within the neighborhood and creating opportunity for growth so that people can call these buildings their home and this neighborhood their home, regardless of how much money they're making, and that it's a desirable and safe place for people to live.
Very good. Thank you very, very much, Katherine. So at this point in the program, we're going to open it up. I'll start with some questions, but we really want this also to be very much a community forum. And so the good mayor will do the honors of passing out some of the question cards. Let me start by asking all of you, the panelists, and we'll start with Katherine. Why are you excited to be part of this project? And the second part of that is, how unique is this in what you do?
I am most excited about this because of the capacity it has to create change. As Misty said, this is the smallest city that has ever received this type of funding, and $30 million is a lot of money. It goes fast, as I'm sure you can imagine, but $30 million in a city the size of Lewiston is visible and makes a different type of change than the change that you can see in Detroit, in Chicago. And that is really exciting and an incredible opportunity for the city. And I forgot the second part of the question.
I think you kind of answered it, as how unique is this opportunity?
It's very unique.
Great. Chris, same question. Different answer maybe, or slightly different?
Maybe the exact same answer, but with a little different context to it. I've worked on a couple choice deals in other places around the country, and they've been amazing. What's happened has been amazing for that small block. What's really great about this is the fact that we're touching so many different pieces of Lewiston. We're able to do 185 units here means a lot to this entire, not just the neighborhood, but the entire city. It means a lot to the other areas of Chicago and LA, but the impact is just not nearly as felt citywide. And I think what we will get out of this in a much shorter term is much greater economic impact for the city at large, just because of how meaningful this will be to so many people on so many different levels, whether it's the commercial space that we're adding in, whether it's the lead-safe homes that we're adding for kids so they can go to school and be successful. There's just so much that's coming out of this that it's pretty amazing. So,
excellent. Very good. And Misty, from your perspective and the roles that you've had both in developing the plan and now at the point where we're at now, how excited are you, and how unique is this opportunity?
Well, for all the reasons that folks have mentioned about uniqueness and how different Lewiston is to access this program, I would echo. But I would also say one of the most exciting pieces that I think, and unique pieces to this type of program, is that specific economic development focus to it. That it's not just about housing. It really is about how our investments are going to, increase additional investment in the area, how it's going to help increase our area median income, how it's going to attract new businesses, how we're already seeing residents in that neighborhood able to start new businesses, like the new child care facility that's coming in. And those, to me, are the real opportunities here, because it's just getting started. And in 5 years, when we do have these new buildings and other investments that have been happening, I can only imagine what it's going to see, what we're going to see there. I'd also add, last month we had in this very same room developers forum talking about commercial investment in Lewiston, and we had several developers from around the state that have worked in Lewiston or have other experiences, and they sat up here and the question was asked of them, like, what can the city do to help you invest, to make you want to invest? And essentially they said, if you create a quality place that anyone would want to live, you don't need to incentivize us. We are going to come, and we're going to be there. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing.
Chris, you have a follow-up comment maybe on that?
Yeah, I just thought about one other thing that was really unique about this is that in most big cities, when you get a choice grant, you spend a significant amount of time moving everybody out, knocking that building down, and then rebuilding it and bringing them back. And so you're uprooting those families' lives, you're bringing them to another neighborhood where they're not used to, you're moving kids to different schools some of the time. It's painful on everybody's, an aspect of everybody's lives, the relocation coordinators, the families, and a lot of those families don't come back. You know, there's a lot of people that say, hey, you know, it takes a long time to build these things. It's been 3 years. I'm going to stay where I'm at. I'm good. What's unique about this is we own the land, and it's not the land where they're living at right now. People get to watch their homes get built. They get to stay in place. We work with them where they are in their homes, which makes it significantly easier to work with them on any referrals or services that we can provide to them. It's extremely unique in that aspect. I can't say for sure that there's never happened in choice before. I haven't researched it that deep, but I'm pretty confident that it's one of two maybe, and I think it might be the only one where that's been the case.
Oh, excellent. Kind of an interesting aspect of this is, I guess maybe Misty, it's a one-time grant? Is that how this works, or is this something that renews?
No, this is our one shot at this. We've done the planning work. We have a great plan, and this is our chance to get that plan started.
Excellent. Question to I guess all of you, but what happens after the properties are developed? Is that where it ends, or does it continue on after that? And are we measuring any outcomes after it? What happens after the property development? And maybe we'll start with Katherine or Chris,
I can start.
Or maybe there
Do
we
you
go,
want me to
Misty.
start?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
But
Misty.
you have to hold up the plan. That's the only piece to it.
There we go.
All right. So as Katherine mentioned, $30 million is a lot of money, but it's also not a lot of money. Our transformation plan is so much bigger than what we're going to be able to accomplish with the goal. And there's a section in the back of that plan that has all the strategies that were identified to help enhance this neighborhood and make it a quality place that people want to live. And it has partners' names attached to it. So if the work is not going to stop with just these housing developments, the opportunity for others to invest, to do different work, is going to continue to happen. The city will be investing in infrastructure there. We want to keep up with that development. We don't want to have new housing that inviting people into the neighborhood and have, distressed sidewalks in front of these beautiful new homes. We want to make sure that we are able to keep up with that too. So that's, I think, what we're going to see a lot more of. It's a long-term plan, but this is going to be a really, really strong start to getting that done, which hopefully will also, attract more people. We've already started to see, some partners, like Avesta Housing has done Gavreau Place and invested, is it $8 million in their building? They are creating new housing. It's mixed income, it's safe, it's affordable, and it's in a great location that enhances our development strategy. We also have Raise Up, who just broke ground on 2 new buildings, so a total of 18 units, so 9-unit buildings that are going to be passive house standards, so super energy efficient in the neighborhood, so creating some of that infill development that people had said they want to see that's family oriented, like in the transformation plan. So it's just getting started. We'll continue to see more like that.
And just as a little context to what Misty was saying earlier about all the plans within this, or all of the vision contained within this plan. So there are 9 goals contained in this transformation plan that are very broad. Things like grow an inventory of healthy housing and offer housing choices for all. So there are 9 goals that are that very high level vision. There are strategies for each of those goals. There are 39 strategies. And then within those strategies, there's 136 actions The things we're doing right now with this $30 million are on that action level. We're not doing all 136 of those, but those are the types of things that will be set in motion so that all of those actions cumulatively will lead to the realization of those broad goals within this plan.
Great. I'm going to turn to some of the questions now that folks have submitted. And again, if you get additional questions, certainly we want to provide opportunity to ask those. But one of them was also a question that I had. Chris, you started to describe a little bit of the difference between LHA-owned properties and some of the other programs that you administer. Can you describe a little bit more about the significance and importance of that distinction and a little more detail on what that was?
Well, there are a bunch of sites that we are adding to this as part of Choice, 51 units. So Lafayette Park, and then some of our scattered site properties that we have that are public housing properties. And so we're going to be using a program called RAD, acronym RAD, Rental Assistance Demonstration, to convert them over to project-based Section 8 and then move that subsidy into the program. And then there's two other properties that we're purchasing, Maple Knoll and 130 Oxford, that are already Section 8 properties that we're going to be converting those contracts through a different program that we haven't quite figured out yet to get those into the same property. And then we'll backfill some of that subsidy with Section 8 vouchers to make sure that the rents meet the amount of money we need to be able to carry the debt that we have to have on top of this beyond the $30 million that we're getting. So that's another important thing here, is that there's a lot of money beyond. The $30 million is not building this. The leverage that we're talking about, this $100 million of leverage, is tax credits and private debt. It costs a lot to build these properties, particularly in this environment. It's getting a little insane. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into this. It's extremely complicated, above my pay grade. Glad we have very expensive lawyers that understand this stuff, but there's a lot of facets, but we're really excited to be able to help properties that are distressed, to be able to take that subsidy and help those families get to new opportunities, new safe housing, and then be able to take those properties. In the case of Maple Knoll, the plan is to demolish that property ultimately and build, whether it be affordable home ownership or other rental housing on that site. So that's another huge piece of this that's incredibly important.
Excellent. A couple of questions dealing a little bit more specifically with the development itself. Are there sustainability requirements associated with the grant funding, and also some aspects of, how do you accommodate parking for this density of housing?
Yeah, no, those are great questions. On the sustainability piece, HUD expects that we are following the requirements of a certification program. They don't tell us which one. There are a bunch of different ones out there that have different pros and cons and focus on different things. At this point, we plan on following Enterprise Green Communities, which is a holistic development approach that is specifically targeted for affordable housing development. So it considers some of the specific constraints of multifamily housing that would be different than like maybe a LEED program, which is easier to achieve for a single family home. So that certification program looks at things like what percentage of stormwater are you keeping on site? How are you minimizing water use within the building by having water limiting fixtures? Where are the properties located? Are they accessible to transportation? And as well as other features about resident comfort and materials and some of those considerations. So that's the program that we're pursuing right now for the 3 sites. And then parking is always a question and always a challenge, especially in infill development sites like these, because what we are seeking to achieve is to fill in that urban fabric and make better use of vacant parcels. There's a lot of surface parking in downtown Lewiston. Something like 23% of the downtown area is surface parking, which is a lot, especially when you consider the overall footprint of the city. So there are a few different things that we're going to do to accomplish that. For the DeWitt site and Ash Street, those are actually located within close enough distance of municipal parking garages that we're able to benefit from some ordinance changes that happened a couple of years ago that allow us to build more limited on-site parking because there's recognition that there is available parking within a reasonable walking distance. So that's one of those strategies that's trying to balance the urban location with the desire that people do have to have vehicles. And then at Wedgewood, we will be building a fair amount of parking on site, 48 parking spots for the 74 units. And then we have done some parking studies as well for this site, and this does also apply to what we expect parking demand to be in the other locations, which indicates that car ownership is about 50% among those 92 households that we know will be moving into these new homes. So we do know. We have that data already about people who will be living here. We also know what average car ownership is within the tree streets now. And then we've also reviewed the amount of street parking that is available and underutilized so that we can make use of some of that existing infrastructure and not burden the city with additional impervious surface and paved parking if it's not needed. And certainly the goal also is to be encouraging people to use alternative forms of transportation. And that's where we get some of this cross-pollination between goals within the transformation plan, which looks at things like how are people getting around, and goals of the comprehensive plan about transit improvement and making transit more accessible. So finding those balances so that perhaps people are using the bus system more, and that increases investment there, and some of those ripple effects down the road that we can't predict now, but we anticipate will come.
Great, thank you, Katherine. Next question, Misty, can you talk a little bit about will the new investments or properties generate property tax revenue for the city, and maybe kind of a aspect of that is how does this investment benefit all of Lewiston?
Yeah, absolutely. So our replacement sites, while they're going to be owned by Lewiston Housing, they are going to be taxable properties. And so there will be an increase in revenue that's coming in from those sites. Also, as you're redeveloping in the area and we're seeing new investment, that's also increasing the property values in that area and really trying to lift up the value of all the buildings in that neighborhood, which is going to be very important. And the second part of the question?
Well, I think you spoke a little bit to it, but it's how does this benefit all of Lewiston? So
well, and it benefits all of Lewiston because, downtown, I think the mayor had said, it's the civic core of the city. It always has been and continues to be a focal point for the city. And a lot of people, we have come downtown now and benefit from a lot of our restaurants. The Bates Mill, as it's been redeveloped, has become an economic engine again for the city with creating a lot of jobs through the commercial businesses there. And so we want to continue to see those opportunities. And so a lot of the investments that we're making are going to attract more businesses, help people start new businesses, give people even more reasons to come downtown, and increase the amount of people that work downtown, living downtown too, which is something that we've been seeing a lot over the years, that people want to do that because, they don't want to be driving all over the place and they want everything close.
Very good. One of the details that came up with a question here is it just housing, or is this a mixed use? Is there retail or commercial space in any of the development areas?
The DeWitt site, which is across from Kennedy Park, will have ground floor commercial space. I think it's about 14,000 square feet total of commercial space on the ground floor of those two buildings.
Excellent.
The others will be residential only.
And Katherine, I guess the follow-up to that is how does who manages that? Is that managed through LHA or?
Yeah, Lewiston Housing Authority will be the owner through ownership structure. So it's a limited partnership that would own it, that's controlled by Lewiston Housing Authority, and the commercial space would be would also be owned and managed by Lewiston Housing Authority. And we are working with the Community Food Center, which is a community-driven food initiative, to design ground floor commercial space at that DeWitt site that would meet the needs for community retail and other food-related uses, a prep kitchen and storage, so that there's accessible and local food infrastructure for people who live within the neighborhood.
Excellent. Great. Question that I'm going to phrase it a little differently than what I originally was going to ask, but instead of asking, will this mean gentrification for the community, I think, or for that neighborhood, I guess the better question is, how will this not be gentrification? I think in some ways you've talked about so much that's really different in this than just simply upgraded housing, but maybe the panelists can each speak a little bit to that. Misty, you want to start with that?
Yeah, so that was something that we heard throughout the planning process is, as we're successful with the redevelopment of this neighborhood, does that mean that people will get pushed out? And people don't want to be pushed out. We don't want to push anybody out. And so a lot of the development that is planned is very intentional. So Chris had mentioned a little bit about the target housing. Those are existing, Section 8 affordable units in our neighborhood right now that need to be replaced. And so those will be preserved in these new developments. We're also adding, workforce housing units, so eligible for people up to 60% of the area median income. So, folks that are working in our restaurants, folks that are working in administrative assistant positions, a lot of people in our community, that have those types of jobs, they would qualify for this. And we're also adding the market rate unrestricted units too, because the goal is, as people increase their income, we want to make sure that there is a place for them to live too. And so having that diversity that will be preserved within these new units makes sense. We also have partners like Raise Up Housing Cooperative, where a percentage of their units are available to people of different income levels. The city has a number of community development block grant programs that are available to private landlords, and it comes with a requirement for some of those that 51% of the units that the city invests in to help make those improvements are available for people up to 80% of the area median income. The important piece about this is having a diversity of different types of units and affordability so that you're covering the whole scale of things, so that if the area does become, a wildly popular very fast, that we have done some work to preserve these important units. And also Gavreau Place that Avesta has built, that is another mixed income. So workforce housing available for people up to 60% area median income, and unrestricted units as well. So,
excellent. Any follow-up from any other? I think Misty did a great job, but go ahead. Yeah, excellent.
She covered it.
Very good. Just out of curiosity, a little, it's been referenced a few times, Gavreau Place. Maybe, Katherine, can you speak a little bit about what that is?
Sure. Gavreau Place is a 35-unit development that Community Concepts owns and Avesta developed with them. We are just finishing up construction, hoping for our certificate of occupancy next week, fingers crossed. And that's a tax credit building. It has many of the same funding sources that we'll be using for the development that we're talking about today. It doesn't have the choice funding, but it is for households of all income levels. So we do have workforce housing units that are restricted to 60% area median income or below, which for context, that's tied to household size. So it's not like I can just tell you exactly what that rent means that it is, but that means rent generally, like for a one-bedroom apartment, we'd be in the like $800 a month or so range for that 60% unit. And Gavreau Place has bedroom sizes from 1 to 3, or apartment sizes from 1 to 3 bedrooms.
Great. And where is that located in the city?
That is just up Pine Street, so it's the corner of Blake and Pine Street.
Excellent. And just so everyone, again, clarity, that's not part of the choice program, but there's some similarities in some aspects of it. We've talked about a lot of the opportunity that this grant provides. But what about some of the challenges that are faced in this phase of the implementation of it? Maybe I'll start with Katherine and then others as well. But Katherine, what are some of the challenges from your perspective?
So from the housing and construction and development side, I don't think it's probably news to anyone that construction costs are a huge challenge right now. That's across the board. Whole industry, entire country is struggling with these issues, so it's not just us, it's not just Maine. We do have some unique challenges because we are a smaller state. We have fewer contractors, we have fewer subcontractors, so the labor pool is smaller. Luckily, we have some really great partners that we work with on these types of things. Hebert Construction is working with us on the Wedgewood development, so we're working very closely with them to go through the design and see where there are areas that we can maybe be more cost effective. One of the unique pieces, this gets back to the first question, is that these apartments that we're building, these homes we're building, are exceeding a typical standard that we see for new development, and absolutely for affordable housing. So we are actively in conversations with other partners, Maine Housing, other funders, about how this housing is different and why we need to think differently about those costs and what those costs mean. Because the apartments are bigger, we have more bathrooms, we have washers and dryers in the units, we're adding cooling to all of the units. So we're building some of those really high quality amenities so that this is truly desirable. But on the flip side, when we're struggling with those cost pieces, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword of how we achieve both of those things and still deliver this really high quality housing that we're looking for.
Thank you, Katherine. Chris, from your perspective as the director of Lewiston Housing Authority, what additional challenges does bringing this program on board or implementing this program mean for you and your staff?
I mean, it's a fundamental change from what we've done traditionally. Lewiston Housing built some nice properties 30-odd years ago and has done a good job of maintaining them for 30 years with the exception of adding one property. So we essentially had to ramp up the entire agency to get prepared to take on 195 new units that we're going to be bringing on, as well as other, we're redeveloping our own portfolio right now. So it's been a whirlwind couple of years. Add a pandemic into the middle of that, and it's been, difficult, but it's been great. It's been an amazing opportunity to be able to ramp up and to get everybody excited about this and get the entire city excited about this and really be prepared for something of this magnitude, which is really hard to project. It's hard to know what the impact is really going to be. You just know that you're building something that's bigger than's ever been built in the downtown before, and you're asking people that have never done it before to get ready to lease that up, manage, operate it, and make it happen. So it's been a pretty amazing journey over the last couple of years to get ready for something like that, but we are very, very prepared. I will say, as the owner of this coming down the pipeline, construction costs have become my new fear because I sit and talk about these things all the time, but I'll leave that to Katherine to worry about for the most part.
For the time being, right? And Misty, again, from your perspective, certainly rising construction costs have an aspect of it, but what are the unique challenges that you see from your perspective, from your role in this?
Well, if you think about all of the things that we are doing just through this one grant, and not just the ones that are funded by the grant, but the commitments that we're making with our partners to invest in the area, it's a lot of work, and 5 years goes pretty quickly. So just the capacity to manage all of this great activity, to also work with other partners that are doing projects and to keep things moving, definitely is a unique challenge because we are a small city, which means that we don't have access to a lot of the resources that larger communities do, whether that is through just capacity on people to manage these types of projects or just financial resources. And so as we navigate construction costs and all of these challenges, it was just something that I don't think we fully anticipated, but are managing it just as well as everybody else.
Super. another shout out if anyone has questions, kind of a last round of opportunity to get those on paper. Maybe I don't know if we do or not, but the one of the aspects that I like to do in these forums is ask if there's an interest on the part of people that are here that aren't necessarily directly involved. How can they get involved in this? And also, where do they go for regular updates on where we are with this and as it moves forward?
Absolutely. So Lewiston Housing, their website, has a specific page for the choice neighborhood work that has the updates quarterly that we are publishing just to keep people aware. We also are going to be posting at several locations in the neighborhood, like Webb's Market, printed updates to just of referring people to the website, but also giving sort of a highlight of like what is going on, especially while we don't see a lot of physical activity happening. And then I would say that for folks that are interested in getting involved and looking at opportunities for how they can advance different portions of the transformation plan, that Misty Parker at the City of Lewiston, happy to connect with you and talk about what those opportunities could look like and how we can support you in helping advance our transformation plan.
Great. And our last question for all of you as we send folks away tonight is, what is the one important thing, or maybe it's not just one, that you want to make sure that they take away from our discussion this evening? And so maybe, Misty, we'll start with you, and then we can go down the line here.
So, we've said it before, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for this city. This neighborhood has traditionally been a focal point of the city, has been a place that is beloved to many, has all of the bones to be a vibrant, successful neighborhood. And we are on the right track to getting back to that. It's a new day and a new opportunity. So to advance what the neighborhood is and to be influenced by the residents who live there is a really great opportunity. And we're excited to see all of the new interest that's happening around that because of this work.
Great. Katherine?
I have two answers to that. One is that, well, they're kind of the same answer, but two different pieces to that. This is just the beginning. This is just a little bit of all of the great things that are to come. And the choice funding specifically is also just a little piece of this. The question I thought we were going to get that we didn't was how much is all of this going to cost, which I'll tell you anyway, which is $70 million for all of that housing. We're only putting $20 million of that choice funding towards that housing. So that's $50 million right there in this housing development right now that's going to be put into this neighborhood. It's going to be jobs through the contractor, materials that are purchased through, in many cases local or state vendors. That immediate financial impact will be right there. But then 2, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, the kids that are living in these buildings who avoided lead poisoning are going to perform better in school. They're going to get better jobs. Their parents are going to be able to hold their jobs down more effectively. I mean, those ripple effects, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's incredible what is going to happen because of the work that's happening now. And this is just the beginning.
It's a tough one to follow, Chris.
Yeah, it's hard being last in line. I guess what I would add to that is we've talked about it, how the spanning impact that choice has and what this will have on creating new market opportunities. But I also just want to say, let's not lose focus on the importance of additional affordable housing as we continue to go. There's a million cautionary tales that go along with this that, you've sparked the market and people are going to come and start investing. And then gentrification does become a problem. It'll turn from being, oh, we need to make this one site, really, our focus, and then everyone will build around us. And then soon it'll be like, well, that's the last site that has affordable housing available in it. You only need to look down the road in Portland to see, 25 years ago, Congress Street was vacant, and, they were giving condos away on the water for $50,000, and now you can't live in Portland if you make less than $100,000, and generally in the East End. we have to have market development happening. It's incredibly important, but we have to continue to build affordable housing to make sure that those opportunities continue and that it doesn't become a lopsided event. So that's what that's my biggest cautionary tale.
There we go.
Most
No,
of it's
that's-
very positive, I want to say.
Absolutely, excellent. And I want to thank you for the time that you took out of your schedules tonight to be with us, but I also want to thank you very, very much for the effort has brought us to this point, and I know the effort that will be there in front of us going forward. And so thank you very, very much for all you've done on the Choice Program. So thank you very, very much, everyone. So that concludes our program tonight. Mayor Shalene, did you want to say a few parting words to folks?
I wanted to thank everyone for coming, and thank you again to our panelists and to our moderator. A round of applause for Mark Lee. And once again, thank you to the library for hosting. Thank you so much, Katherine. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.